So, just for the record, this is a just quick notes review on why I buzzed my head. So, let's get into it. It's actually it's deeper than you think. It's not that deep. Maybe it is. I don't know. You can decide for yourself. Let's see here. Oh, this is so much. Sometimes I hate that I have to spit so many ideas out in the morning because then I have to read back over them and synthesize them. And it's like, why did this all come out of my brain right as I was about to finish writing this thing and then I had more to say? So why did I shave my head? The struggles men face in today's distorted world. Dad didn't grow up with the same voices accessing his mind. The world will tell you your worth and your identity is based upon your body fat percentage, your jawline, your facial shape, your hair, your weight, your height, the girl, your car, your clothes, your house, your follower count, your likes, your figures, your income, your business, etc. Nobody's going to tell you this outright, but it's just been encoded into you over the last 18 plus years subconsciously. We grew up with social media. We grew up with phones in our hands. We grew up with machines and the world's highest paid engineers designing an artificial reality for us that was designed to keep us engaged, to keep us hooked, to keep our attention and to condition our attention for a kind of consumption, judgment, and comparison that our brain was not designed to handle. We're drowning in this noise, and we're just trying to avoid being at the bottom of this artificial social ladder, to avoid rejection from the tribe because we don't want that. That'd be too painful. So we spend so much time, i.e. looksmaxxing, posting, sharing our lives to get that validation and acceptance. But you can't get it from that. You can't get a real, true fulfillment and reward from that.
It's true. Listen to this guy.
Shut up. I'm transcribing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's fine. I'm just transcribing my notes. It's fine. You can make fun of me. I'm talking about dopamine. So the higher reward system, where was I? So basically, there's the higher reward system, and I wanted to talk about that. That's in bold text, higher reward system. The reason why is because the higher reward system and circuitry is you have to pull your brain off of the shallow reward system that you've been conditioned into in order to find more depth in your life. So social validation plays on our reward system hard, which is why we're addicted to it. It's why we pretend so hard, because we're desperate for real acceptance. We're desperate for a real tribe. The world's tribe standard is material standard. It's externalities defining your identity and value. The standard of the righteous tribe is immaterial. It's eternal, and it's internal. We get dopamine from the comments, the shares, the you should go do that. Wow, I can't believe you're doing a marathon. That's going to be so hard. Good for you, right? When you get that kind of approval and that kind of social validation, that plays on your reward circuitry inside of your brain. This is why you see poor people staying poor, spending thousands of dollars on drip, clothes, cars, sneakers, bags, belts, BS, to run up a score in an artificial scoring system subconsciously embedded in our entire generation. You can't escape it. You can't escape that conditioning unless you grew up in a monastery. And that's a compilation of our high scores across our body, bank account, business, baddies, aka the kinds of women that you attract into your life, and your brains, how smart you are. Are you able to achieve these kinds of things? Whatever. What's your degree? What did you score, right? That's what we score ourselves by. So why do we care so much? Why do we spend so many hours curating these little traces of history, these little files to convince the world of a perfect, happy, fitting present moment? When in reality, it's anything but that. We're miserable, hiding behind fragments of a person, designing and curating each little corner and edge and side to make sure that it fits some form of acceptability of what we think will make us acceptable. That's different for everybody, but everybody has a way of which they think this is going to make me acceptable, and if I can just achieve this, if I can just get that, if I can just have this relationship, I'll get that acceptance and I'll be happy. But the truth is, you won't. That can't make you happy, because even if you do get the social acceptance, even if you do get the thing, there's this thing called reward prediction error, and that's what humans fall prey to all the time. you get it, and then you become depressed because you realize that thing couldn't give you it, and you just wasted all this time killing yourself over it, just slaving away at this. That's because an eternal, infinite void that comes from an infinite source, or an infinite conscious being that comes from an infinite source, cannot get the satisfaction, cannot get fulfillment from finite temporal material things. It doesn't matter if it's friends, people, achievement, business. You can have a million different ways to score this, but that, it doesn't fill it. It doesn't work. So that's the challenge, because we just want everyone to accept us. Like our aunts, our uncles, the girl, those guys at school, or on the team, or at work. It can be anything for you. It might not be. You might hate your family, whatever. But the freedom, though, comes through the suffering, the struggle. It's the trial and error. It's the experience in the trial and error, in the suffering, which then creates discernment and perseverance, which then helps you find truth, find real freedom. But that is not found in the prison of perception. It's not found in the prison of pretending. It's found in the process, the struggle, and that's where you persevere, and that's where you develop character, and that's where you learn from mistakes, and that's where you find out what's real. You don't find that in speculation. The prison of perceived value. So the only way to get free from the prison of perception is to cut off the life you've known in a 180 world, aka repent. That's literally what repentance means. Taking a 180, taking a full understanding that what you've known up until this point, what you've lived up until this point was a lie, and it can't actually satisfy you. And you already know that because everybody is trying to get this score, but they're not satisfied. And it's pretty obvious that we're all pretty miserable. I know people can have nice things and they can say that they're fine. And I think a lot of people are incentivized to say that they're great because that's what's celebrated. Anyways, I don't want to go on that right now because I'm about to rant again. Stop wasting your fuel on things that don't matter at all. So you can actually be a blessing to your family and your future sons and daughters and brothers in the future and now. You're transmitting that energy that you're wasting on the social validation score to run up the score in real life, in the righteous grind. That's your health, that's your wealth, that's your wisdom. You're grinding righteously so you can be a blessing. So you can build a real brotherhood, because a real brotherhood is not flexing, it's carrying the weight. It's lifting for others. It's being there, it's showing up, not showing out. That's why David Goggins says, who's going to carry the boats and the logs? Eventually, we get tired of pretending. And at this breaking point, you have a few options. And that's where we get into the different responses. What I mean by breaking point is at some point this stops making sense. And at that point, you have to make a decision with how you're going to keep living your life. You can keep playing games, or you can stop playing the game that you're in, quit the game, and enter the righteous game. So there's a few different games, a few different grinds that we get on. And there's only one that actually makes sense. So I think the challenge with the breaking point is at some point you try to cope by expanding, you try to cope by facing, you try to cope by escaping your reality. And at some point you get tired of it, it's not working for you. And then you have to decide whether you want to just quit, switch games, or just keep trying harder and stay on the treadmill and be the perfection of a man like Andrew Tate. No trash on Andrew Tate. It's just like a different mental frame of how to live that I don't particularly I don't really believe it's fully aligned with truth. So moving on from that, there's the For You page grind, FYP. It's fake. It's designed to maintain appearance or approval. It's posted. It's optimizing your life for the approval of others. There's the non-grind, which is just the escaping, avoidant grind, which is just running away and just grinding on the Cheetos and the joints, which is just not even trying. It's just numbing everything out. There's the perfectionist grind. There's the combative grind. There is the narcissist grind, which are all different forms of the aggrandizing, violent, combative, must win at all times male, which is kind of what you see with someone like Andrew Tate. In order to be a man, you need to win all the time. And if you're not winning, you suck and you're not valuable, because your value and your worth is dependent upon your performance, your win percentage, and your body fat percentage, and the car you drive, and the amount of money you have, because you're just competing with other men to get women, because men are inherently not of value. That's what the world teaches. And that's prison, right? And you do all these things as if you will get the acceptance you really want, as if you will get that kind of fulfillment that you really want, the one you really need. But you're not going to get it from there. You probably already know that. And then there's the righteous grind, which is coming from the place of I already have the acceptance I need from my source, so I'm good. I'm not wasting any more time playing shallow games, trying to get people's attention or approval, trying to escape this reality, or trying to achieve a certain standard look, win percentage, or level of attention from other people in order to feel like I'm acceptable enough, because I don't have to operate by that anymore. I'm already acceptable. I'm already good with God. I'm going deep with God. I'm going deep on the grind. My goals. I'm the generational tipping point. I'm going to make a radical shift in my trajectory. I'm not dependent upon performance, but performance comes as a byproduct of the conviction and focus that you receive from God. The conviction and focus that is prompted from grace. Conviction, God will make a way. Focus to make it happen by faith, to find the way by faith, to step today forward, knowing that grace has got your back, but you got to make a move today. You can't stay here. You can't stay the same. That's the righteous grind. You're fed up with the current and you're not willing to stay in the old self anymore. So story top down. Growing up, we just want to belong. We just want to be wanted. We just want to be wantable, lovable, acceptable. That to be wanted and acceptable and loved is the greatest desire of the heart of every human being, whether or not they admit it. And how we fill that desire varies. How we cope with the pain of that desire and the craving for that is ultimately what directs the course of your life. And that's why Andrew Huberman says it's all internal, because it is. The challenge with that cycle of pain is you don't get what you want. You don't get that acceptance from the world. You don't get that love from the world. The world's love is conditional, and you find that at a very young age, and that sucks. So coping with the pain of that desire is three different things, broadly speaking: self-expansion, self-escape, or self-effacing. We'll go through all three. It's actually self-expanding, self-effacing, and then self-escape in terms of just 1, 2, 3. If you want to think of it as the three models, the first is expanding, the second is effacing, and the third is escaping. And I'll go through what those actually mean, because those sound like fancy words, but they're not. And so the first off is the expansive self. This is one of three things, but at the end of the day, it's, okay, I feel this pain. In order to deal with that, I'm going to try to get as much as I can to get the acceptability or to fill this lack. So you can do that through being combative, narcissistic, or perfectionistic, generally speaking. You'll fit into one of those three, or all of them. Maybe you're all of them if you're Andrew Tate. No slack on Andrew Tate. I don't know why I'm bashing on him so much, but whatever. Ooh, that's good. I gotta drink my sodium, bro. We're getting this workout today. So, where was I? That's the conditioned cycle of noise that we get stuck in, because the world gives us conditional love, and now we've been conditioned into a level of fear or reactivity. And then we deal with that by either trying to win at all costs, trying to get everyone's attention on us and get the attention of everyone. That's what a narcissist does. A narcissist is obsessed with themselves, is not actually obsessed with themselves, is secretly cripplingly insecure and unhappy. And I would say that's like everybody, but maybe that's just me. Maybe some of y'all are perfect. That's fine. Maybe you got your therapy and you're locked in. You got it all figured out. But the narcissist wants to take all of the energy in the room and funnel it towards themselves to fill up that hole. The combativist wants to find the biggest person in the room and take them down, because that's their version of coping. And the perfectionist wants to perfect their craft, their body, their self, their bank account. It could be anything. You see this in a lot of ways. Usually perfectionists are applying across all the board. The perfectionist thinks to themselves, if I can just look and act just right and criticize myself before anyone else has the opportunity to, then I'll be safe and I'll be able to be acceptable to the world. Those are the three aggrandizing types. If that didn't make sense, please drop questions below and I'll try to explain it better. This is just what I've learned over the years. Number 2, you have the self-effacing, which I've been in many seasons of my life. And battling one right now with old. It's rough. People pleasing is essentially pretty simple. It's being a doormat, basically doing anything and being anything to get love from somebody else. You will sacrifice everything to feel worthy enough or acceptable enough to a specific other person, party, group, whatever it is that you feel like you want to belong to. So growing up for me, an example is going to be a lot more helpful. Growing up for me, I always saw my mom was stressed out, and I was like, I'm going to make sure my mom is never stressed out. So I'm going to do anything and everything to make sure that she's not stressed out, because I didn't like it when she was under too much pressure. But what happened as a byproduct of that is I got addicted to the approval. That's what the effacing does. They do everything in their possible control to get the approval of others, which is super critical. So we do everything we possibly can to get the approval of others, and we do that because we want to please them. And if we can get there, if we can please them, then they'll approve of us. In that moment, we'll have this satisfaction of things are okay, right? So it's like I would wake up at 7 a.m. and bring my mom coffee, and I would do the dishwasher, do all the chores, and take care of everything outside. And not everything, but I would do all these things, and I would do my morning devotional. I would get all this stuff done so that I could get that approval, and then I could go do whatever I wanted, right? And that was my way of dealing with reality as a homeschooled kid growing up. Was I can just make this person happy. If I can just get her approval, everything else is going to be easy, and I'm not going to have to deal with any friction, so it's going to be fine. I had siblings that were more of the combative type. They were like, this person's in power. I don't like that. I'm going to try to take them down. Or I'm going to resist this because I refuse to be controlled, or I refuse to be in less control than someone else, right? So the biggest challenge with the effacing model is that you bend so much of your life for other people. You sacrifice so much for people who may or may not deserve it, but you sacrifice from the wrong place. You're not sacrificing this out of this. Sometimes you are like, oh, I genuinely love them, but it's also like, no, you're addicted to their approval. There's a difference between being addicted to someone's approval and genuinely having someone's best interests in mind and loving them unconditionally. Because you don't love them unconditionally. You love them based on the approval they give you, which sounds kind of weird, but you're basically trying to match them perfectly so that you get that. The challenge with this for communication is people pleasers, they'll be passive aggressive and they won't speak what's actually going on. They'll just try to adjust to make the other person happy, and they'll do that to a fault, and then eventually they're miserable, and then they're angry, and then they have resentment, and then the other person's like, why are you so mad? Why do you never talk? It's like, oh, you just wouldn't understand. And some BS from people pleasers, just coming from my own experience. And then the last one, number 3, sorry to rush through these, but this is a lot of material. The last one of this is the self-escaping or self-avoidant type, which is essentially just like, all of this sucks, this pain sucks, I hate feeling like I don't belong. I hate feeling isolated. I hate feeling this desire for acceptance and not be able to get it. So I'm just going to numb this pain. I'm just going to stay away from this pain. I'm just going to avoid this at all costs, whether that's substances, parties, people, experiences, perfectionism. I think the self-avoidant can really express itself through a lot of different ways. It could just be like, oh, I'm just going to get this new drug, or I'm just going to pick up this new habit, or I'm just going to move locations, as if that's actually going to solve your that's not going to solve anything. Ultimately, everything's internal, so you still have to deal with that. So that's the challenge with this self-escapist. It doesn't matter what you do, you're still going to be stuck with you. So until you actually address the core desire to be wanted and where you're searching for affection or acceptance in the wrong places, until you adjust where you're looking for that acceptance, the void will always be there. You will constantly have that void, and you'll just be doing everything you can to close that void. That's what these different methods are. Whether you're expansive or you're effacing or you're an escapist, it's still the same cycle of avoiding the void and being like, well, let me just see if I can get it this way. Now, it gets even crazier than that, because at some point, this load becomes too heavy to bear. This subconscious load becomes insane, and it's sitting on the shoulders of your spirit, and you reach a breaking point. And at the breaking point, we usually, at some point, we come up with the idealized image. Maybe this is during the cycle of noise. Maybe this is after. It doesn't really matter. I wouldn't get too confused about when everything happens, and I would just try to understand this as a framework for how we respond to life, how you're responding to life, and then what you can actually do about it and where you're getting lost and how you can recalibrate. I want to talk about the idealized image for a second, because it's something that I probably didn't touch on enough. Actually, I definitely did. I already touched on all of this in the writing, so I really don't need to go over it. So I'm going to shut up about that. But the idealized image is another thing that's creating this pressure, and then we're using this idealized image to reduce the pressure. Basically, if I can just look perfect to the world, then I can reduce this pressure of feeling unlovable and isolated and lonely and unworthy, right? And if I feel that, if I can just make sure that everybody sees this perfect version of myself, then I can just look at this perfect version of myself and I can just convince myself that I'm that. And this is very much like Severance themed here, because that's essentially what they do in Severance, is creating this isolated consciousness that is lied to and told that everything is great and that everything is perfect and that your outie is happy and fine. And their outie is completely unaware that their innie is being completely tortured, right? Or not being tortured, but abused. And that's how we split our consciousness. We create for ourselves this perfect, all-powerful, fully fulfilled, got everything locked in and figured out character, and then we mold as much of our reality as possible to fit that. And then in those moments, we feel like we're in control and we feel great. But at the same time, to do that, we're abusing ourselves and we're making ourselves miserable, and we're becoming a slave to this image. So we're abusing that innie, we're abusing ourselves to create this image, which we think is going to create the satisfaction and the acceptance that we want, which we really can't get from others anyways. So we're taking that up and we're trying to please this outie, so to speak, right? We're trying to please this image of this stagnant, empty-minded thing. And then the other side of you is miserable, hates your life, has extremely cripplingly low self-esteem and is like, why do I hate myself? Whatever it is for you. And then that version is trying to numb the pain and trying to just break out, though. That's the breaking point, is that innie tries to break out, basically. If you watch Severance, that's exactly what it is.
Let's burn this place to the ground.
We're fed up with this. We're going to burn this place to the ground. We're going to war. Or you resign and you don't do anything about it and you just keep being numb and you just go further and further into the void, into that matrix of body images, and you just keep on layering it up. And it just gets harder to undo because you've created more life ties on top of this artificial thing that's not real. The challenge with that is, how do we actually break out? There's this version of you that's being oppressed by this snapshot. Well, what do? Vulnerability is the only way forward. That's what you do. I know I'm talking super fast, but I'm caffeinated and fasted right now, so the ideas are just... That's our challenge, is how do we actually break from the chains of the idealized image that is hovering over us and creating this hyper unworthiness, isolation, loneliness, unlovability, and egocentric living, which is this super hyper self-centered, I need to make sure that I'm perfect at all times and that I look great and that my face is perfectly mogged out and whatever. My face is actually super puffed right now because I'm on the bulk and I think I had too much sodium / there's mold / I don't know. Doesn't really matter though, because at the end of the day, even if I did get social approval and everybody said, wow, Jamie, your face looks amazing, I'd still be miserable. So with that out of the way, this burden gets too heavy. And so the version of you, the person that's been grinding to maintain this image, comes to a breaking point because they say, this is stupid. Why am I doing this? Why am I spending all my time trying to curate this perfect image of myself? Why am I spending 45 minutes every day on my face making sure that it's perfectly flat and making sure that, I need to go for a run, or I need to fast, or I need to make sure my sodium's just right so that my face doesn't look too puffy, because if it is, then they're going to reject me, or they're not going to like me, or I'm going to get made fun of, or I don't even know. There's like this little fear block. And this is just coming from a person who seeks approval mainly and perfection. And then when he doesn't get that, goes into avoidance and goes into, I'm just going to disappear from the world. Screw all of you guys. I'm just going to, just numb it all out, right? That's my broken way of coping. And that is the effacing model. Breaking out of that is tough, dude. That noise gets loud. That noise gets really loud. The longer that you've conditioned that, the longer it's been conditioned into you, especially with the image and social media, and you start to convince yourself that you're this version online, but you're not that, right? That you're not that. And so now it's like, well, I have this version online that I'm trying to maintain, this version in front of other people, and now I have to go do all these things, or I have to go prove all these things, or I have to go have all of these things. The car, the money, the house, the clothes, the girl, the wife, the kids, right? Talking about parents making their kids do all of this stuff so that their family's super or whatever. And it's like, nobody actually cares, really. Like, nobody actually cares what your family does. At the end of the day, everybody's too concerned about themselves and their image to actually even see what's going on in your daily life. You could be miserable, probably no one would notice. That's because most people just don't have unconditional love. They don't have that ability to see outside of themselves. And I'm including myself on this. It's just so easy to get stuck in here. We have to reach that breaking point where we're tired of oppressing ourselves, and oppressing ourselves in order to... Oppressing yourself could be trying to win all the time. It could be just trying to work all the time. It could be trying to perfect everything. It could be trying to get the perfect approval from this exact person, from that girl, from this wife, from that boss, whatever. Or it could be trying to get everyone's attention and just being a narcissist and just surrounding yourself with all the evidence that you're this perfect image, you're this perfect version of yourself, which you're not, but you're going to surround yourself with only evidence of that, and anyone who doesn't support that image is your enemy, and you might have to fight them down, or you might cut them off, or whatever. Weirdos. Right. So now we have a choice. Man, what are y'all doing? Why are you taking pictures of them? I don't want to hear about that. Can't breathe. And I'm itchy. Real itchy. Yikes. Okay. All right. Oh, look at that. Kip's in the background. That's perfect. So, boom, boom, boom. So now the question is, what do we do? Because if you resign, you just go down that dark hole. You just cycle through the same stages that you've been going through and fighting resigning. Going to comfort, then feeling miserable, then transition to other things. You're just like a bot, just avoiding pain, and you're just flinching every time the pain touches you and then just inching away from it. That doesn't work. That's a broken pain. That's the pain of hurting your own soul. It's the pain of hurting your innie, right? Because you just don't want to deal with whatever really happened. You don't want to deal with the trauma. You don't want to deal with the noise. You don't want to deal with the darkness. You don't want to deal with the hurt. You don't want to deal with the longing inside. So you don't want to deal with the void. So in order to not deal with the void, you're just going to leave yourself in the cycle of misery. You're going to leave yourself in the cycle of noise, and you're just going to stay there. And you're just going to let that idealized image oppress you, just like they do at Lumen or whatever. I'm sorry. I'm on this big Severance kick right now, so if you're hating the Severance vibes, I'm sorry. I'm not even sorry. I love Severance so much. I think it makes me think a lot. So I know not everyone's probably going to be hype about it, and maybe I'm behind the trend, so maybe it sounds stupid now, but not really worried about it because, man, social validation is a lie. It's an illusion. It doesn't even exist. Even if you did get it, it wouldn't make a difference. I don't want to get down that right now. So you have to repent. And repentance is not this self-flagellation or loathing. It's none of that. It's the pain of healing your soul. It's the pain of doing a 180. It's the pain of ridding yourself of all the darkness, the unfruitful ways, the disoriented ways, the broken, dysfunctional ways of coping with reality, coping with the longing, the pain, the void inside. You're releasing that, and the weeds are tight around your brain, your heart, your neural circuitry, your body, your habits, your lifestyle, your friendship circles. There's a lot of stuff you have to pull out. That can hurt. But you're doing it for that long-term gain, which is what we need to talk about next. So before I get into the game plan, there is a game plan for this, but we have a need for love. We come from a source of pure, unconditional, infinite love. The love we need is of the same kind. But on this wild, lost, angry, twisted, disoriented, divided, violent, dark, distorted, dystopian, chaotic, unstable world, spiritually speaking, that is incredibly hard to find, especially when searching in the wrong places. Black holes of noise with no end in sight, no satisfaction, no resolution, no closure, no finding, just seeking, craving, and consuming, only to want and crave more and more and more. And so the cycle begins. That's the cycle we just talked about, summarized briefly. Eventually, but happiness, love, peace, contentment, joy, personal development, and success, which is a byproduct of that, are an inside job. They do not come. They do not happen on a material level. You originated from an immaterial level, an immaterial God, made in the likeness of God. You have an infinitely transcendent consciousness, but a finite body, a finite frame. So we try to cover, we try to fill, we try to satisfy this infinite void, which is a void because it's not filled with the Holy Spirit, with the holy eternal love that we're designed to receive. We try to cover that void in the immaterial realm with the things of the material, finite realm. Money, fame, success, body, girls, bros, whatever. Business, money, etc. Experiences. And it's no wonder that we statistically feel more empty and overwhelmed than ever before. We either feel nothing and then too much. We're back and forth between being overstimulated and overwhelmed and anxious and freaking out and having a whole life breakdown and being completely empty and depressed and miserable. And that's because we've been conditioned to think that the solution is in our status. It's in this not just status, it's a scoreboard. It's an artificial scoreboard. And like I said before, it looks different for everybody. Your scoreboard might be your win percentage. It might be your perfection. It might be your image. It might be your appearance. It might be the attention that you get from others. It might be your comfort, right? It's different for everybody. For me, my main scoreboard is like the approval of others. And if I can just get the approval of others, then I'm happy. But for some people, that scoreboard is more like just comfort. And it's like, let me just not be in pain. Let me just avoid pain. If I can just do that, I'm good, right? So that's how we measure up our life based on that scoreboard. It's an artificial scoreboard. It's not real, but we measure our life by these different things, the possessions, the experiences, because we do have this real need to be acceptable to the tribe. Survivalistically speaking, that neural circuitry is designed to help us not get rejected by our family. That's why we have it. We don't want to get kicked out of the tribe because we don't want to die and starve, right? That's real. But social media in the modern world plays on this with a hyper optimized acceptability sequence, essentially, that trains your brain to think, well, I can just get everything just right, then I can be acceptable. So if I post this, and then if I do this, and then I'm gonna finally get it right. And let me watch one more. Maybe then this time I'll actually change. Right? It's like, that's not gonna work. That's not designed to work. It's designed to keep you on the platform. It's designed to keep you consuming. It's designed to keep you a modern slave to consumption and noise, which is I'm swinging this like a freaking pulpit or that need though for acceptance is exaggerated with the hyperconnectivity of social media, which is why it's so freaking dangerous. There used to be rites of passage, right? But now it's an artificial scoreboard embedded into our subconscious. We can't perceive it because that code is lining our neural pathways. We grew up with social media, bro. We grew up with these standards that evolved as different people blew up online. And now it's like we have to deal with that in our actual daily lives and how we've built our lives and our identities on these things that aren't even real, that don't actually create lasting fulfillment and happiness. That's the freaking challenge, bro. So, where do we go from there? Well, you're living subconsciously, trying to avoid making mistakes, i.e. being seen as a failure, being seen failing, risk of being rejected by the tribe, or even worse, the female figure. Oh my gosh, right? And the greatest pain, the greatest mistake is not rocking the boat, not making a mistake, not dealing with the pain. That's the greatest mistake. The greatest suffering is avoiding suffering, dodging discomfort, staying in avoidance, masking the void, and long-term burial of pain, which just creates more deadness and emptiness inside. So that's a long rant to say that you're not going to get it from that. You're not going to get the acceptance and the validation and the real life stuff from that. It's not going to come from that. However, we come from an infinite God who loves us unconditionally and does not give his heart in pieces. We don't have to earn his acceptance. It's already won by Jesus Christ. So we operate from the victory, from the unconditional love and acceptance that we already have from our source who knew us before we even existed. So now we get to grind, i.e. suffer through perseverance, develop character from that perseverance, right? And then in that perseverance, in that character development process, we get this conviction. And with that conviction, we become more bold. And with that boldness, we step out faster, we step out bigger, we show up better for other people, and we become the blessing on this planet. And that's what we're designed to do, because there's nothing more intoxicating than being there for your tribe. So if you can just be there for your tribe and be the best thing on this planet and come from that place of unconditional love, you win. But how do you tactically do that? That's what we're going to get into next.